we have Ross Campbell joining us.
Happy to be here.
He's the legal engineer of
Open law, I guess.
Open law. Yeah, I'm sorry. Open law. He's also working in DAO and Moloch DAO and some other interesting DAOs. So he will have a really good presentation into intro to legal engineering, but also talking about Ethereum, DAOs, privacy, and all other topics we already explored before you join us. So please just start with your presentation. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. And I think it's going to be very interesting for all the people that would want to learn more about blockchain, Ethereum in general, but also how to become a legal engineer and what it is to be a legal engineer.
And I appreciate that introduction, Marina. And yeah, welcome to the call, Anil and Heinrich. I'm Ross Campbell. I work for a legal technology company called Open Law, based out of Brooklyn, also a consensus spoke. As Marina suggested, I also work for some venture DAOs, such as the Lao and more recently Flamingo DAO, which uses Moloch DAO codebase to sort of make investments on Ethereum in its startups and also in rare works with Flamingo. But I digress. Like I said, I'm a legal engineer. I'm a former, or I guess I'm a lawyer. You know, that was my first sort of vocation in life. I worked for a corporate law firm for 2 years in New York, now called Hunt and Andrews Kurth. I did a lot of, I guess, bankruptcy and deal work, but, you know, part of my journey into blockchain and into legal engineering more generally is sort of the idea that a lot of the work that I was trained to do that cost clients a lot of money can be done way more efficiently and way more securely using, you know, document automation tools such as we have at Open Law, but also smart contracts on blockchains like Ethereum, which can be used to sort of settle financial transactions and cut banks and other sort of papered elements out of deals. So that was my calling to join Ethereum, to start learning Solidity smart contracts and work for Open Law. But I think this is sort of a field and an opportunity space for everyone. I don't think you have to be a lawyer to sort of participate in legal engineering and the idea of firing lawyers and bankers for making promises. But of course it helps. And I'm glad to be able to speak at this summit, and hope more people like lawyers can kind of understand what I'm trying to work on as a former corporate attorney, now turned Solidity coder. Moving on through the presentation. What's legal engineering anyway? Like I said, it's a sort of mixed discipline between what I think as transactional attorney work, corporate lawyering, writing deal documents, you know, handshake stuff versus, you know, litigation, but also kind of this idea of scripts, scripts as code that mirror what we're doing as corporate transactional attorneys. For me, that's legal engineering in a nutshell. And I hope that makes sense. But steaming ahead, yeah, this idea of transactional scripts, what smart contracts are, I think has been discussed to great length. A lot of ink has been spilled over the last couple of years, even going back to Nick Szabo, like in the 90s or whatever. People have been wondering, you know, what the heck is a smart contract? For me, the easiest way to think about it is, like I said, a transactional script, something that helps a deal happen. And oftentimes when we think about deals, we think about steps of performance. Bob is going to give, you know, a basket of grapefruits to Alice for $100. Bob has to do the delivery of the grapefruit, and Alice, to complete a deal, has to deliver $100. Smart contracts essentially are ways to sort of take the performance of sending money and doing other sort of things, such as updating property rights, sending title to a house, putting that all into code. And then ideally, we also have something that a judge can read, make sense of it in case people scarper and don't do what they're supposed to do. But ideally, you know, this is all way more cost efficient because people are in control. They're not using costly intermediaries like banks to settle deals. Alice can just click a button now and pay somebody. Of course, you can do that on Venmo. But if you want to pay Bob in, I guess, South Korea from your vacation in Hawaii in 2 seconds, you should use a blockchain. Anyways, I digress. To sort of repackage what I'm talking about, where lawyers, I think, have a first mover advantage for legal engineering and using blockchain, we're kind of always pit against the costs of doing deals, you know, making sure that payments get sent on time, you know, from party A bank to party B bank, recording what people promised in a legal contract, as well as ideally a secure database so that, you know, people don't just like, overwrite their deal and say like, yeah, I never promised to give you the grapefruit. That is always concern of people just lying, you know? So we kind of had developed skill sets and technology to just record what people promise. Escrow is, I think, a common task for lawyers to sort of hold money and wait and understand a deal and make sure that money is sent from party B to party A. But I'll get more to escrow later in this presentation, because I think it's one of the best examples of using a smart contract as a lawyer. And like I said, registering and executing transfer of legal titles, you know, settling the title transfer of a house. That might sound easy, and it should be, but as anyone who has worked on real estate deals, there's often, you know, almost weeks to just make sure that, you know, party A gives the other party a legal agreement that is signed that affects the title, but also update, you know, local government registries. It's all very complex, and it costs clients tons of money. And from my perspective, blockchain already solves all this crap. So why don't we use it, you know? So we have an intuition that, you know, money and the way we talk about deals, where we form them on the, you know, between parties is already happening online on the internet. I think this trend has obviously been accelerated by, you know, the COVID-19 crisis, where basically everyone works from home, and now everyone, you know, is working from home making deals. It's not like contracts have ended because of the pandemic. They're just entirely online. And I think it has sort of made the idea of also using blockchain a bit more appealing and reasonable. Like I said, we understand that people are essentially using their phones and digital bank accounts to send money back and forth. Why don't we just use a common railway to do this that doesn't require, you know, people signing ledgers just to update them, which is a menial, stupid task? What if we could actually have deal records that settled and were basically irreversible? You know, there are certain financial transactions that are legal in one country, but might be expressly prohibited in another, and could be vitally important, you know, for human rights. So having a neutral way to record and settle financial transactions might, you know, be a right, emergent human right. And we can talk about that later in this call. I think that's kind of a more political topic. But kind of, I think the greatest point in the whole, you know, deal with blockchain is that it is a truly automatic financial ledger, because it's neutral, it's hard to corrupt. Therefore, people are more and more trusting that one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, one Ether is one Ether, and that the updated counts with those transfers among smart contracts are real, and that these are sort of native assets that the world has never seen before, and I think make corporate deals a lot more interesting. Why Ethereum? I've probably, you know, expressed a lot of bias in this call already, but basically, from my perspective as an attorney that wanted to learn how to use smart contracts and start coding, it was by far the easiest place to get started. You know, Consensus has invested a lot of money into the infrastructure for Ethereum development and for users. MetaMask is super easy to get access to. For me, using MetaMask Remix, which is just a browser, I was able to start coding smart contracts and deploying them within a couple days. So you know, it's not really a difficult uphill battle to become an Ethereum developer versus maybe other chains. But more importantly, there are really substantial network effects that are happening on Ethereum, such as stablecoins and decentralized exchanges such as Uniswap, that I think are sort of magnets for all this digital value that I'm talking about that's kind of migrating from paper online. So yeah, money Legos, that's basically the meme. It's true. There's a lot of value held on Ethereum and in Ethereum smart contracts, and that sort of has a Lindy effect. It is self-perpetuating. I won't, you know, forecast or prognosticate on, you know, if Ethereum will be relevant in 10 years, but I think it's extremely relevant right now, and it'd be silly to not at least try and develop on it. Like I said, lawyers, we have intuitions about, you know, what a deal is, and, you know, largely a deal consists of financial transactions that are signed between parties. That's literally what Ethereum is almost built for, is to have accounts that can sign, that can create conditions with smart contracts, and then update each other's accounts. You know, it's a more advanced ledger system for money, and therefore a better place, I think, to try to do corporate deals than, say, Bitcoin. And of course, why don't we use spreadsheets? Well, spreadsheets don't have any sort of tamper resistance or, you know, distribution of, you know, servers. So spreadsheets are easily hacked. And why would I believe what those ledgers say? So a lot of this feels kind of inevitable, similar to the internet, just making it easier for people to access each other and to access their own value. So yeah, lawyers should probably pay attention. I have some quick examples I might show from pre-recording on open law, and to kind of pivot this sort of rambling presentation. Open law, I think, is the easiest way for lawyers and general legal users to start writing and using smart contracts. And I can say that, but it's easier just to show you. And what I like about these demos is that they're actually completed using my iPhone, and I can access templates, and later in the presentation, I'll show you the markup language. But this is just to show you how easy it is to sort of create a legally binding agreement online. Like I said, on a phone, just by filling out some form fields. And as you can see, it's kind of sped up. I'm taking pictures. I'm describing the goods for my bill of sale. That's, you know, based on this open law template. And what I think is more powerful here, though, is, you know, beyond just making the automation and the time necessary to create a legal agreement very small and simple, it's also allowing the user to program a smart contract condition. In this case, a escrow for the delivery of shoes for DAI, which, like I said earlier in the presentation, is a stablecoin, and I think kind of an emergent primitive for corporate deals on Ethereum. I'll skip ahead to where I think a huge flash area for lawyers to get interested and involved with Ethereum, and, you know, this is dispute resolution. Oh, sorry, I just cheesed that. Let me go back. All right, there we go. One of the cool things about smart contracts, you know, beyond being a way to send value back and forth, you know, using code, is that you can also allow instant settlement of disputes and an award of arbitration using smart contracts and things like stablecoins. So oftentimes, if you have a dispute, you go to an arbitrator, they give you some sort of resolution in hand, but to actually get it enforced and to get payment, you know, for that award, you still have to go to a court and arrange that payment through banks. When you use open law and sort of these tools of smart contracts, we have that sort of advantage of sending funds party to party, peer to peer, but the smart contract also allows a third party that we designate here, an arbitrator, to actually resolve things immediately, and people get paid the same time they get the award. Oh, sorry. Hopefully I'm not getting hacked. This is another example of tokenization, issuing a digital asset related to making a promise. Income share agreements are a sort of legal tool. Really, they are a financing instrument for people to go to college. Instead of taking out loans, people say, hey, Acme Co., here's 10% of my future income. And in exchange for that, you know, I'll be able to go to this college and everyone will be happy. Where I think there is an advantage to using smart contracts in Ethereum for these sort of vanilla transactions is if you issue an asset like a token to the lender, they can immediately tap into secondary market liquidity and start trading on that sort of financial promise. And I think that's sort of a really neat way to accelerate and sort of, you know, not only have a sort of, you know, record of the commitment, we have a token, but then we can use Uniswap, we can use other sort of money Legos to then get money in hand, get repayments way more quickly. And yeah, entirely digital, accomplished by a phone. Who doesn't like that? Legal engineering, though, you know, isn't just being a user of open law. Like, it's like I said, a hybrid craft of understanding what smart contracts do, so you can add them to legal agreements. But I think drafting is also a skill set here, in that you want to sort of talk about, you want to talk about smart contracts in a way that makes sense. I'm sure there's better language that, you know, people on this call can come up with, but I think you'll see this more in sort of crypto lawyering, is a way to explain what the hell a smart contract is to a judge. And that is a skill set. And I think that's a skill set that probably comes from working with smart contracts and having at least a basic understanding of Solidity code. So yep, there's a lot to do here, but I think the world is largely ready and impatient for lawyers to start kind of running their own deals using smart contracts. You know, when you hire a lawyer, you don't necessarily want to hire a bank. You don't want to hire their friend, the escrow agent. You don't want to hire all these other parties, but they're kind of repeat players and, you know, sort of extractive elements for any deal. If lawyers can write the logic for an agreement into a template, so then it only takes a couple seconds to write and draft and execute, but they also have bankers replaced by smart contracts and what I said are transactional scripts, I think everyone wins. Everyone saves a lot more money. So yeah, I want to pause for questions because I kind of just laid out a lot of data. But otherwise, I think it'd be kind of cool to try to do some live demos because I think that's just way more fun. So any questions so far?
Maybe Henrik has any questions, but I have one. I'm actually, I mean, I know you're working on open law for quite some time right now. And what is the response of the users? Like, how are they responding when they see that for the first time? Who are they? And, you know, this is, because
yeah,
we
that's a great
know,
question.
you know, we know how hard it is. We know how, you know, what is the development, but when they see it for the first time, you're also doing it very user friendly. So
Yeah, so users that I think have been most impressed are already Ethereum users who understand a MetaMask pop-up. You know, if I say like if I talk to a normal lawyer in like their 60s and I say like this invoice pays somebody, but you have to download MetaMask and then you have to go on Coinbase and get some DAI, they're just not going to do it. Even if I explain that it's instant and it saves them a lot of money, nobody likes to feel dumb. You know, nobody wants to go through hoops that are unfamiliar. But there are, I think the best user base, like I said, are Ethereum users, but Ethereum startups and founders who generally don't like lawyers. They want simple ways to form companies, and they want simple ways to kind of paper over what they're already doing with MetaMask and Etherscan. So like we have you know, people in the Ethereum community who don't, you know, blink when they send $100,000 you know, from their MetaMask account. But I think they're starting to realize that, you know, there are accounting needs there. There's a need to explain things to tax attorneys. There's a need to explain things to governments. And it's also nice to have records in case of problems if the person you're paying, you know, gets a bit feisty. So those people have definitely, you know, found this approach useful, this sort of hybrid, you know, document automation, everybody likes that, but then this sort of icing on top of a sort of payment logic. It makes sense to them because they're already using these efficient payment mechanisms. We're just including them to, you know, this idea of legal agreements. Just yesterday, I had somebody use, I think Redeem RCLE, one of my redemption forms, to hire me to talk to them about their ETH Global hackathon tomorrow. And this is kind of where I see the pickup is like I said, people that are already trying to do digital stuff, but then this is just a bit more legit and involves emails and that sort of record keeping. So yeah, somebody yesterday was like, hey, like, let me, you know, let's get this done. And I gave them this form and they burned one of my tokens. Let me just put that there. I could probably even show a burn. I probably have some RCLE. That's the same person. It's throwing a warning because I have the same email twice, but like I'm doing that on purpose. And yeah, for a lot of MetaMask users, this makes sense. You're just like, yeah, that's like anything I would do. But now I have a nice little form that explains what's happening, and it's also a record. Startup founders don't keep great records. You know?
Yeah, no.
So like this can fill that need. Yeah.
But that's really good what you were saying, because you were comparing it to Legos. So they are using some of the Legos already, and you just add to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to sort of make that Lego point a bit more clear, I could just show some markup examples. So let's say A promises to give B X for Y. Oh, let me get my mouse there. Call this test. Save that. That's pretty easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any lawyer can do that because they know how to bracket words. Any coder can do that because that's easy. This is way easier than coding. So like Bob promises to give Alice die or something for apples. Let's call that like 10 die. And then I can real-time edit this to include a legal Lego, which is really a money Lego, which is a payment clause from the open law library that's separately maintained. So I think that's the one that should hopefully resolve and compile. Sweet, yeah, okay. And then let me refresh that to make sure. So just by including this line, pay die, I've actually included a program to pay somebody die. And let me make sure that actually works. Bob, Alice, 10, Alice, 10 die, just make it easy for apples. And then get my Ethereum address. I'll pay die with that. My other address will be Alice here. Connect that. And then, yeah, I'll include some signatures. So this will execute. Remember, that's just like 2 lines. And then, yeah, I programmed a payment, I guess,
Amazing.
technically. Oh, I have to switch accounts. Yeah. I have to get into the right account, actually, because it's enforcing that logic. All right, there we go.
This is how easy it is to be.
And die.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's like so obvious that this is more efficient. And now it's just like making it easy to understand or something. But like, I think if more people kind of took the time to experiment, they would find these sort of tricks and all this would make sense to them. But the people already experimenting, the Ethereum developers, the founders, those startups that have new legal needs because they're accepting investments, they are primed to use this. And I think that will also help convince the old guard and other VCs that there's sort of really relevant efficiency gains here, because like people are spending a lot of money on lawyers and banks right now, So.
They are. And I mean, this needs to be the future. But if I just tell you something, for example, when new regulation on blockchain was adopted in the European Parliament, people the ones that drafted it, started talking to the people that were younger than 40 years, because they understood it, and then they just conveyed the message to their older colleagues. And I think that could be a good.
Yeah, that is helpful, because I think there's definitely alignment in the younger generations, especially with economic crisis after economic crisis, and now this pandemic. That's like maybe we should be more in charge. I don't know. Maybe we should use this technology a bit, because
especially if we think about lawyers and how kind of traditional we are and not really keeping up with tech. That might be something.
Yeah, so that's kind of the lifeline I almost see, in that there are already pressures, from coders, from document automation, from litigation automation. I'm forgetting the name of the company, but there's one that helps you file the challenge to getting parking tickets automatically from an application. And you can extrapolate that to more advanced sort of civil complaints and sort of an inevitability there. And lawyers are going to lose opportunities and money due to this sort of run-of-the-mill automation. But if they sort of think ahead and say, why don't I get bankers out of my deals? Why don't I get all these other third parties and I provide that value to clients? I think they can maybe craft a space for them. And also this idea of governance as a service, lawyers in DAOs, lawyers at least helping sign and change the state of Ethereum smart contracts. That's another value add and service and skill set that I think maybe lawyers, like I said, are primed to do because we're, you know, complex problem solvers, but we also have a sort of mandate and respectability to do these sort of governance activities, which are often quite legalistic, you know, interpreting agreements. DAOs are agreements essentially in a lot of ways. And I can kind of, you know, show the LAO as an extension of that. I don't know if you guys can see at the bottom, the LAO 1 LLC. This is what we're calling a venture DAO. So, you know, an Ethereum smart contract is a voting application. It allows members to join. It allows people to contribute capital like any other investment club or your typical LLC. But what we kind of have done here using the Moloch DAO smart contracts is, if I can get to the, let me change things. We have allowed people to sort of apply and get funding immediately after a decision is made. So kind of what I'm hinting at is we have already seen an example of lawyers from open law and in our community kind of take the wheel from bankers and also from venture lawyers and say, we can streamline this with open law investment documents. And also we can streamline the actual delivery of funds when a project is accepted after a member vote. So like I said, people can apply. There's been already a set of investments. I don't know if it shows here. These are all just pending applications, actually. Okay, here we go. You can see that 16% of the membership said yes. So then after that happened, this project was funded. Nothing more needed to be done because the smart contract guaranteed that result. So I think that's kind of a cool thing in that, like I said, we have efficiencies. So making these investment deals is cheaper. We also have greater security for startups. They don't have to worry so much about waiting, weeks and weeks to get paid or get the investment. It's immediately in their bank account, if you will, their MetaMask. And yeah, generally, I think it's been good for the space because smart people are getting money and building cool things that the LAO is also using. Like Tornado Cash is a startup that was the first funded investment, and it provides a privacy mixing smart contract. And that's a whole nother regulatory conversation, but it is a utility to members to sort of have privacy when they fund their accounts. So anyways, there's sort of a virtuous cycle, and that's kind of an extension of money Legos, but like people using money Legos, like DAOs, I think promotes the technology, it pushes out better code, and generally it's better results for lawyers probably if they embrace this rather than resist it, because I think they can easily be displaced by the trends currently, with in-house counsel getting more, farming out less work, I would say, to law firms, automation trends, and generally, people I think are more skeptical about the billable hour as a true way to denote value in writing documents and thinking strategically about forming deals. So yeah, I think there is a reckoning for lawyers, but maybe if we adapt and become legal engineers, it won't matter if there is a reckoning. So
yeah, maybe just something else. We are negotiating the new normal here at this conference, and I think that of course, everything that you're doing is something so revolutionary that could be used in negotiating the new normal and maybe also trying to help to define it. But I think that just the idea of the DAO might be interesting for the people that are not familiar with it, because we're talking about the DAO, we're talking about your next project, Flamingo. So could you tell us just very shortly, what is the deal with DAOs? What are they interesting?
Yeah, so DAOs are interesting because, like I said, there's a revolution in having digital money. There's also a revolution in having a good way to control that digital money, to have joint accounts rather than just one Ethereum account is always doing peer-to-peer. So DAOs are kind of a necessary feature to Ethereum. Like, even if somebody didn't come up with DAOs or call them DAOs, they would have happened anyway because it's necessary for security to do more high-value transactions. You can't just have one private key controlling deals and controlling treasuries. you need a multi-sig. You need 2 out of 3 to sign to enable high value or more risky transactions to occur. So when you ask like, what's the deal with DAOs? It's like, without DAOs, Ethereum could not grow from my perspective. It would be too insecure and too difficult for most people to use because of this issue of blockchain assets are bearer instruments, which is a superpower, but also a grave risk. If you lose your keys, you lose all your money. In the normal world, you can usually get relief from the government or your bank is insured. That is not necessarily the case, at least on the moment in Ethereum, although there are insurance protocols, but I still don't understand how they quite work, and that's a problem. Anyways, so yeah, like DAOs, like I said, a way for people to co-own a pot of money. Obviously, the extension of anybody doing that is funding. It could be funding themselves, like an allowance. You could have a DAO of parents and their family, and they could use that to pay their children securely. There's other things like that, like a trust could use a DAO to escrow funds for your relatives. They're just extremely useful to actually do things on Ethereum. For I guess the Lao and Flamingo DAO, they are very efficient forms of investment clubs to sort of do this sort of early stage startup funding and to acquire exotic assets like with Flamingo, NFTs. And yeah, they're exciting because people have power that's immediate and consequential. When you join a DAO, you're not just like polling, you're actually signing something that has consequence. You have skin in the game most often, especially with Moloch DAOs, which usually require tribute in order to join a capital contribution. So I see them as, kind of those necessary coordination mechanisms to actually move funds securely. But also, yeah, they're ways to get incentive alignment between players to do great things together, to fund startups, to build forest restoration projects. You can think of anything really, that can use these tools, for good results. Like anything that requires coordination probably wants a DAO because it's a good way to share a bank account with a bunch of people for a special project. But yeah.
But I just may add something. Maybe there's also this hierarchy thing that they're not that hierarchical as other organizations. This is also something that I think it's very interesting for people in the community and might be just, interesting also for the new ones coming in, especially with this idea of negotiating the new normal. So how our organizations actually run, and can we do it in another way? Can we do it in a way that includes more people and everybody has a say in it?
That's a great point. And that's kind of a prototype for new governments in a lot of ways. If you start from the premise of transparency because it's on above blockchain and a flat organizational structure, that's a democratic notion. And I think if people see, DAOs used, as cooperatives, as political think tanks and lobbying, like I think people might say, why don't we just form a nation state using a DAO? And like, I think that'll be quite interesting to see as well. And already we see examples of universal basic income being provided to Ethereum accounts. The Uni airdrop was a good prototype of that for users getting rewarded. But, citizenship has its own rewards, and, taxes or whatever. And people that are citizens on Ethereum, you could argue get UBI if they hold the native asset as users in terms of price appreciation of Ether. But I think we're going to see DAOs used to sort of give their members, income, and maybe massive DAOs, millions of people as sort of networks that are really familiar to government, and that feels inevitable because of the pool of money moving to the online, and people needing, like I said, these secure ways to move it around. But also, yeah, I think it speaks to the zeitgeist and, to most values that people have, like the internet values, I think are more emergent and important than any of the professed values of civic institutions or whatever. Like, anyways, I think we sort of see a rationalization of those true, almost natural law values and sort of the natural law playground of Ethereum, where things are just inherently more truthful because they're code, so.
Yeah,
But yeah,
we had this discussion this morning with Vlad Zamfir, but this is just how it shows that blockchain, and especially I guess the maybe Ethereum community, is very ambitious. You know, we are
yeah.
actually designing tech, to use tech in order to try to think about new governments in new ways and how to organize ourselves.
That's the religious aspect, I would say. And
Yeah.
probably the successful projects are ones that have grand ambitions and romantic notions about changing the world. There are probably a lot of other Ethereums that came before Ethereum, but just were like, oh, we're going to design some code and get it peer reviewed. That's our only ambition. That's not going to change. That's not going to galvanize anybody. So like, I think that's always going to be a part of Ethereum if it's going to maintain relevance. If we get apolitical or don't try to think about changing the world, then it's so pointless. That's when I look at these other like public blockchains that don't have ethos, and I'm like, no one's going to actually, anyone with any genius is not going to work on them, you know? So you have to have a grand notion, ambition, I think. And I think so far that's played out pretty well. You know, Bitcoin has its grand ambitions too. They want hyper Bitcoinization, but I think it's less about changing social systems and contracts and more about just changing fundamentals and money. So like they're both definitely ambitious projects, but I think Ethereum will always have that flavor of greater ambition because there's just so much more that is technically possible when you have money and agreements together in code. You know, you can't really do decentralized exchanges or agreements on Bitcoin, at least not quite yet. So all the ambitious people are on Ethereum, I'd say.
That's very nicely put.
Yeah, I try. But yeah, this was fantastic. I don't have much more show. I need to update my token contracts for these open law forms because there's a gas crisis, as you guys probably have noticed, and it's forced a lot of Solidity developers to really rewrite a lot of stuff to gas optimize. And yeah, that's something that we think about a lot with DAOs and, you know, with open law sort of features and utilities is like, no one will use this if it costs, you know, $100. Even the most hardcore cypherpunks won't use it.
So do you see any solutions right now for that, or like what are the solutions?
Yeah, so like I can just show you. Like I've already coded it. I wanted to deploy it today, but there are less computationally intense ways to use smart contracts. And a good example of, you know, oh god, this is my like bin where I put all my code and it's terribly organized. Oh, not that one. Sorry. Okay, while I find it, the solution is basically every token doesn't need to have its own library of code. We could just have every token use one library. It's so simple. You know, it seems like such a good idea, but to do that securely has taken a long time and a lot of smart people to create patterns to allow what we're calling clones of Ethereum assets to be deployed that inherit functions from a common library. So yeah, this is something I'll probably deploy you know, today or tomorrow after I audit a bit more. But yeah, a basic ERC20 token that I think will work for personal tokens or, you know, investment tokens. But we use sort of these new features such as a clone factory that basically allows every token to just be like taking this much space versus this much space on the chain.
You're kind of making it more linear.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm doing a really crappy job of explaining, but really I'm just using other people's ideas and trying to put them together and
amazing.
You know, hopefully make things a lot cheaper. But suffice to say, the improvement is like a couple bucks to deploy a token versus $100. So it simply must happen. And I'm really glad that that can happen just using better code rather than having to change the economic guarantees of Ethereum itself. So that's like way more difficult.
Amazing. Is this sustainable long term? Or I think you think this, I mean, it's going to
I think we're the dark ages.
To be changing constantly.
Yeah. So I think right now is the worst it can probably be because Ethereum has an advantage in that they're first mover, but if they don't improve their gas networks, you know, sharding or having easy to use layer 2, another chain will just, you know, eat Ethereum's lunch very quickly. So I think Ethereum is very focused on upgrading to, you know, ETH 2.0 to have a more sustainable way to secure consensus using staking rather than proof of work mining.
But it depends when this is going to happen.
Yeah, it's probably gonna take 2 years or something, and there is an uncertainty element to that. But you can deploy Solidity smart contracts on XDAI. You can use Optimism when it's ready, probably in the next couple months. And those are extremely cheap. But I do think, you know, the combination of all these things, like Solidity Coder is doing a better job with storing data and also having a lot of the traffic that's pushed gas costs up, like Tether and USDC and, you know, Uniswap exchange, like moving to layer 2. I think we can probably see a basic gas cost consistency on Ethereum of a few bucks to deploy a new asset, regardless of ETH 2.0 happening.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm optimistic that
that's good.
Are ways to use the advantage of the network effect, but not lose out because of gas costs. Because yeah, it's necessary, and a lot of people are working very hard to solve this issue. But yeah, I think, you know, the worst gas was like in the 400 or 500 Gwei territory, and using leaner code, the most you're going to pay is like 10 or 20 bucks, and that's on the worst. More consistently, I think people can use Ethereum to do new assets and to do transfers, you know, a couple bucks at a time. And that's probably good enough and can be subsidized so that those gas costs don't even occur to most users. And that's another thing I actually included in this upgraded code is a way to sort of have users not need to pay gas to transfer tokens because the recipient can, you know, call and pay the gas or something. So like it kind of closes that gap a bit. Anyways, it's a moving target and it's infuriating, but it's also very exciting to see this much happening every week in terms of Ethereum development.
It's just like staying up to date. It's just the most time-consuming thing ever.
Well, every time I deploy a new smart contract, like the code changes such that like I have to update my smart contract because I'm losing so much gas and like, but that's part of the territory. And I think more people that join and develop, I think there'll be just a leveling off and a plateau because we've all figured out all this stuff. Like, I don't think it'll be this crazy in 10 years if Ethereum's still a thing.
Of course
I think it'll be much easier to develop on. Yeah.
So this is a perfect point for the last question. How do you become, you know, an engineer, a legal engineer, especially with Solidity, or maybe Ethereum, or just in general? What do they need to do if they're interested?
That's a great question. Here's my 3 pillars to start being a legal engineer, at least as I understand it, which is, you know, corporate deals on blockchain. You need a MetaMask wallet to sign Ethereum transactions and to deploy a smart contract. You should become familiar with GitHub and how to read it, how to make PRs and do other stuff. You know, it's just part and parcel of being a coder. And a lot of what I, you know, develop is just taken from GitHub and remixed. And on the topic of remixing, remix.ethereum.org is literally the best thing I ever found to do smart contracts because I don't have to download an application on my computer to use my MetaMask to deploy code that I paste in here. So like, I can show that very quickly if we have time, just like what it looks like.
We do. That's just take your time.
Cool. All right. I'm also trying to like move my screen stuff. Oh God. All right, 1 second. Cool. Okay. So that's a copy and paste. Anybody with, you know, fingers can copy and paste. I'm going to compile it. So this is actually something that I wish somebody taught me how to do. Was like, most people see this and they're like, what? The gist is all smart contracts have a header that tells you what to compile at. So boom. Okay, compile. this is a token contract and also a factory that I was discussing earlier that makes it much cheaper to deploy tokens. It's compiling. So basically what's happening.
Yeah, we don't see your screen anymore. If this
Oh God.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Let me fix that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's useless if you guys can't see it. 1 second. Oh God. Yeah, sometimes this computer gives me certain grief.
No worries. It's just normal at the online conference that things like that happen.
Oh, so I didn't realize I was like showing my like waist. Okay, sorry everyone. Okay, let me get back into the scene. I think it'd be okay. Cool. You guys can see that?
Yes, we can see that. Perfect.
Wonderful. This is still compiling for some reason. I think it's because I'm doing like 5 things at once. But to your point, like I said, understanding GitHub, understanding MetaMask, understanding Remix, you can already start building smart contracts. Where I show OpenLaw is that it's an easy way to use smart contracts like these tokens without needing to know how to code Solidity. Like I showed earlier in the presentation, you can type pay die and then extract that Lego and then start using a smart contract. But here I did a compiling. I'm going to actually use my MetaMask to deploy the smart contract. Cool. Oh, that's in mainnet. I don't want to pay gas. So let me show you guys a little trick. You can select testnets at the top of your MetaMask account. If it'll let me click. Oh God. I don't know why things are being so slow, but.
No worries, we have time.
Yeah, in a more perfect world, this would work. Let me just see if it will show me now.
It's when you want to demonstrate something, it always happens.
Oh yeah, I do think it's just really difficult for bandwidth when you use Web3 applications and you have a call.
Yeah.
Let me use Ropsten as my testnet. That's fine. All right, let's do this. I don't like Ropsten because it's hard to get testnet gas. I prefer Rinkeby, but you dance with the one that brought you, right? So that should be deploying on Ropsten testnet. I can see a transaction pending, which is always a good sign.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
So for all the ones that are not using Web3 applications, this happens. It just takes some time.
Yeah, this is also why I hate Ropsten, because I feel like they are doing a good job mining transactions, whoever is validating these blocks. So it's taking a bit longer. On Rinkeby, it usually it's like a couple seconds, but whatever. So I can see it on my remix, but it's just taking Etherscan a second to catch up.
Okay.
This is a template for a token. Like I said, this is a library I just deployed. And then this is like kind of complicated, but oh wait. I mentioned that token library. I'm gonna do this. Oh man. I don't know if that'll work, but anyways, probably should get a testnet token reference. Ropsten die.
So just for the ones that are joining right now, we are trying to do some coding. And actually we are showing how we can become legal engineer.
Yeah, I think any lawyer that has deployed a smart contract is already way ahead of the curve, you know. Even if you don't want to code smart contracts, understanding what they mean, the risks of using a smart contract, I think makes it much easier to make that recommendation or to say, no, client, that's way too risky for this dollar size of this deal. I think, you know, for things that are like, $1,000 or so, it's quite friendly to use kind of the open law stuff or even to manually do it like I'm doing right now. let me check. Cool, my factory deployed. It's kind of hard for me to see stuff. Okay. One thing that I think is helpful to explain with Ethereum assets and programming is oftentimes you pass parameters to sort of set values and controls and permissions. So like here, I'm saying the manager of my asset is this account. The resolver is that account. Resolver here means a backup recovery. So if I send my token to the wrong address, I can use a resolver to recover it, which is very powerful and definitely has some risks involved. 1,000, 100. Setting some initial token values. Details. Okay. True. And I want it to be transferable. Hopefully this works. Sweet. So I'm glad to see this is working because I was going to have to test this later today anyway.
Okay, that's amazing.
And then I should see a token deployment from that factory. And as you guys saw in my first transaction, I deployed something called Lex token, and that is basically my library. So every token that comes from this factory just points to that as a template. And you guys might hear sirens in my background. Sorry, it's part of living in New York. There we go.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I can see the token on the block explorer. As a fourth sort of recommendation for people that want to learn legal engineering and want to build on Ethereum, Etherscan is really, really useful to keep track of what's happening with different accounts on Ethereum. It's called a block explorer that is basically almost like a Google for Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
You can type in an account that tells you every transaction they've done and what their holdings are. And like I said here, I'm actually seeing the result of a transaction I just signed from Remix. I have deployed a token called Hi. I've given an amount to the founder here, 100. And then I've actually put 1,000 tokens on sale, which is kind of cool.
Great.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So, oh, and this is kind of the cool thing about that's a very lean deployment, right? So yeah, that's probably good enough and probably already pretty confusing. But I think if people just start playing around, they'll find it a lot easier and a lot less intimidating. So yeah, thanks for letting me kind of give you the presentations. Thanks for letting me talk for so long. And yeah,
no,
always happy.
I think it's inevitable. If you talk about things like that, you need to have some time to explain it. Especially if, this is not like the standard blockchain nerd conference, but it's like the legal nerd conference. So
yeah, but
presented from another point of view.
I was happy to do that. And I think legal thinkers and coders are going to converge, and it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, until then, we got to talk to each other and figure out what each other's working on.
Exactly. Yeah, this is exactly what we need to do. We need to talk to each other, and we need to bring those two words together. So thank you very much again, Ross Campbell,
thank you.
For this great presentation and for your work that you're doing.